Why would you tell him that? Of all the people in this room and in that room, you tell Dan that. Why would you do that?
It was weird. You alerted Dan knowing that was going to go to air.
I mean, you saw us grinning, and so I feel like whenever you see the shipping container, we're going. It's magnetic force.
Well, but I also saw that all of you, like it was very clear. It's very rare, Roy, that the entire room clearly and obviously turns on you in a way that's howling and accusatory, and that you're being punished by this. And you're also smiling through it, which is the part that I'm not used to you smiling in any form around here. That's the part that I tend to follow. If there's a giant smile on Roy's face, it's like the rare light that people search for in religion to go find. Wait a minute. The light has even reached Roy?
No. It's a smile of, why is this happening? Why are you people doing this to me? It's a
mean,
discomfort.
You people?
Wow.
God.
Good point, Dan.
What do you mean?
Good point, Dan.
Oh, seriously.
what does Dan mean, you people?
Maybe you are what they accuse you of being.
I hate people.
Well, this is not making things any better.
All people.
I guess it's not discriminatory.
That's right.
It's
Maybe
equality.
against all of humanity. You just like animals.
Yeah, I hate people equally.
I've known Roy for a long time now, and I can verify, and I will back him up. He hates people.
I think the only person he likes is Bill Lawrence, to be honest with you. He
That's a
loves
good
Bill
man.
Lawrence.
That's a good man.
Bill Lawrence.
I
yeah.
enjoy that man.
I mean, once a
He's
week,
good
Roy's
person.
like, can we get Bill Lawrence on? It's like, Ted Lasso again? Jeez.
Shrinking.
New season coming out of Ted Lasso. By the way.
Hey.
A lot of theories about the trailer. It was very
Just
exciting.
became Fat Albert.
What just happened there with hey? What was that?
New season, Ted Lasso, let's go.
You're trying to bring back Fat Albert. Stugotz is trying to bring back Ed McMahon. It's not a bad Fat Albert.
Oh, thank you.
Billy and Jess, I noticed our group is not great at meetings, I would say. And you guys were howling and I would say distracted from whatever it is that was being talked about because something was happening on Stugotz's phone that both of you were shouting about to each other, interrupting whatever it is that we were meeting about. What was happening on Stugotz's phone?
Well, so we were in a meeting before the show, just, shooting the shit, as they say. And we were kind of talking about what we were going to do today. And then Lewis noticed something on Stugotz's phone. And then he, elbowed me. And he's like, why does he have that on his phone? And then I looked at it and I was like, that's odd. And then Jess saw it. And then we were kind of talking about, Stugotz had a contact open on his phone. And he was talking and participating somewhat in the meeting and also just talking to Whitty or whoever was next to him. And he's just kind of swinging his phone around lackadaisically with his fingers there to a point where it's like he's going to accidentally hit one of these buttons on his phone, on his phone. And then what ended up happening is he FaceTimed Todd McShay.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at his phone and I saw myself looking back and I'm like, is Stugotz taking a front-facing selfie? And then I was like, oh no, he's FaceTiming Todd McShay.
Yeah.
In our meeting.
Not by accident.
It was by accident. You didn't intend to
not mean to
FaceTime
He's
Todd
at the
McShay.
combine. I check in with him every morning. I get hand size. I want to see how Bryce Young looks. Todd usually answers. He was busy this morning. I mean,
I only knew
it's a
it was
regular thing.
Combine
We've been
week.
doing it for years.
I only knew it was Combine week because I went on Instagram the other night and was looking through the stories, and there were 5 in a row of shrimp cocktail from that stupid steakhouse in Indianapolis.
St. Elmo's?
And I was like, Jesus.
Yes, it's the only place.
Most predictable media corps in the world, just going to get shrimp cocktail the Monday of
Why
Combine
isn't there
week.
a second restaurant in Indianapolis?
It's St. Elmo's.
Can they get another one?
It's host to the combine. They must have such a giant week this week. And it's to measure that, oh no, Bryce Young is 5'10 and a half. What are we going to do?
Mina really screwed him. Really screwed him. The picture that they put up next to each other, that everyone's like, oh, Mina's either a giant or he's not that tall. Should we draft him? And then she had to go. Did you guys not see this?
Yes.
She had to go on an apology tour. No, I was wearing heels that were really high that day. That was a strange one.
Bryce Young is at the epicenter, and Amin can speak to this stuff because he's certainly used to the idea of measuring.
Of looking small next to a giant person.
That too. Of measuring athleticism and measuring the size of people to assess the value.
How was the poop?
Oh, it was
Yeah.
on fire. At least 500 degrees coming out.
Could start your day now, huh?
I mean, it's just,
I'm trying to eat bacon over here, man. Don't do this to me.
Okay, well, he did it. I didn't do it.
I wish you hadn't. Stugotz, go sit outside.
What?
Yeah, go sit outside.
Get out.
Just go sit
Care
outside.
about my teammates?
No,
I mean-
you didn't care about your teammate. Don't file. Really, Stugotz? You check in on the bowel movements of Amin regularly because you care about your teammate. How was the poop is something you were trying to contribute as care? Get out. Just get out.
It's a regular
Just
thing
get out.
me and
Just
Amin
get
do.
out.
I mean, it's just like me and McShay.
Yeah, just like you and Michelle. Get out. Thank you.
Combine week.
How was the poop? Is not helpful around here. I wanted to bring in Amin and his expertise on measuring talent, and you. How was the poop?
I will report that from what I hear, it was a 2 fire emoji.
Bryce, you go sit with him. You go sit with him. You wanted to anyway. You've been wanting to since you got here. Go make a God Bless Football while you're out there.
They have like a whole thing, and they
Get
talk to
out.
each other. They send emojis.
5'10.5" is what Bryce Young is measured at, and quarterback size is now changing, right? It's been changing for a couple of years, and when I hear my quarterback is 5'10.5", I get scared.
Well, so there was the trend that you had the number 1 picks of Baker Mayfield and of Kyler Murray, and that was the NFL signaling. We're no longer doing the you got to be 6'6" and a good pocket passer. We're gonna do this differently. But then Russell Wilson's career went off a cliff. Kyler Murray basically had the yips in a playoff game, and it turned out that Baker Mayfield was bad. And so we might be back to square one, and some teams might want someone like Will Levis, who has a more traditional quarterback body, as opposed to Bryce Young, who's 5'10.5".
So this is one of my favorite things. In the 2003 NBA draft, right? One with LeBron, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Darko, Chris Bosh. Do you know who tested as either the best or second best athlete in that draft? Luke Jackson. You guys remember Luke Jackson?
I do.
Luke Jackson played for Oregon. He played with Luke Ridnour. It was the two Luke crew or whatever they used to call them, right? And Luke Jackson, when you put him in a combine scenario, all the things that they tested for, he was an incredible athlete. There was one simple problem. When you put a basketball in his hands and put him on the court, he wasn't a good athlete. So the combine does not test how athletic you are in a game. It tests how athletic you are in a combine setting. In the same way that standardized tests don't test how smart you are, they test how good you are at taking standardized tests. So that's the big issue, is you look at a guy and you can have all of these desirable measurements. And then you put him in a game and it doesn't matter. Or the opposite. You look at a guy and his measurements aren't that great, but you put him in a game and he's incredible. Tom Brady, I mean, we've seen the pictures of him at the combine. That does not
Seen
look
it too much. It's enough. I get it.
I'm
He was
just-
a little chubby at the
But
the combine. Stop it.
But think about that, Woody. Think about the message. The message is, this was this dude trying to be in the best shape of his life, right? When the combine, whatever shape you are when you show up at the combine, that's not who you really are. That's you've been working out for 8 weeks or whatever with a trainer, with a dietitian, and all this stuff. And then you show up and you look like that. What do you look like 6 weeks earlier is my question. Because this was him getting into shape for
Peak
it.
physical condition, Tom Brady.
Right.
But I mean, isn't all this stuff that we're talking about, like the short quarterback was in and now it's back out and we're back to Josh Allen types who were freak out? Like, we don't know what we're doing.
But yeah, because
and so it's just, they're trends and then they go and then they come and then they go and then they come. And in basketball, it's the same thing. It's just sometimes we pick great athletes and sometimes we're going off the stats of what you did in college.
Because the reality is, it has nothing to do. There's not we want a heuristic, right? We want like a stencil that we can look through and like, oh yeah, he's good. Oh no, that guy's kind of obscured. He's not good. And the reality is, the only constant is he a great player? That's the constant, right? What does Josh Allen and Russell Wilson and Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers all have in common? They're great quarterbacks.
Yeah, but none of what they also have in common though is that none of them are 5'10.5". What they also have
Russell Wilson's
he's short,
but not 5'10.5". Short standing next to Mina, who is slight. I do think that 5'10.5", the official measurement, because they went out of their way to make it. He's a 6-footer.
That should be a new combine measurement. How tall do you
Right
look
next
next
to
to
Mina,
Mina?
yeah.
I like that.
Right there, right when they take the picture, it's like, Mina, can you stand right to the left of him right there? No, you're not good enough, kid. Get out of here. Go join the XFL. But Dan, if he can play, he can play. Right?
Understood. But 5'10" and a half is something that when they're eating those shrimp cocktail at the scouting combine, they're all worried about 5'10" and a half at my quarterback position.
St. Elmo's, right? Isn't that the name of the steakhouse that they all
St.
go
Martin
to?
also. Russell Wilson,
I
by the
wasn't
way,
here.
Russell Wilson came in at 5'11"
why I
at the
asked.
combine.
To fire.
5'11" at the combine for Russell Wilson. So it's not
Same-
far
same
away.
difference.
Right. So, and by the way, it's like even when we look at Kyler Murray, is Kyler Murray, was he disappointing this year because he was too small? If he was 6'3", would be like, oh, he would have been killing? No, it's stuff that has nothing to do with his size.
It's not, I mean, like
There are batted passes. There are issues with the size.
I also think that there's a longevity question now because
Sure. Okay.
like Russell Wilson just fell off a cliff at 31.
Sure.
And you're going, I mean, a lot of most franchise quarterbacks go to 37, 38.
How tall was Drew Brees?
Drew Brees?
6
Was
feet.
he was
6 feet.
6 feet or 6'1"?
tippy
But he was
toes.
also, he also fell in the draft because he was
'Cause he
too
was short,
he
yeah.
was too short. And the conversation that I wanted to have around this, because it's actually something that's happening in circles as the information guys say, no, the Bears aren't going to trade the pick. Justin Fields, I worry about his durability at the position because of how he plays.
It's not because of how he plays. They have the worst offensive line in football.
but
One
Jessica-
of the worst.
Yes, but that forces him to run. That's what Dan's
But
saying.
Right.
no, it doesn't
Right.
just
But
force
that
him
doesn't
to.
mean that it's because how he plays.
The reason I
because
worry.
he has to play a certain way.
Right.
But,
No,
but
he is
also
playing
you're
more
best-
physical.
You're
Hold
best
on.
taking advantage of his skill set by running him 16 times a game.
He is playing the most physical style of football, like a running back, and his lower body weighs about what all of Bryce Young weighs. Bryce Young is slight compared to Justin Fields. I'm not even talking about
Justin Fields
scouting
is-
measurements.
no.
I'm talking about what that Jalen Hurts has one of the best squats in the league because all of a
Yes.
sudden one of the things they're valuing is quarterbacks who have sturdy lower bodies because they can take more of a beating.
Justin Fields is very strong. He's in great shape. Billy and I sat next to him at the Super Bowl. Surprisingly big. But I think Amin's point, and it's a good one and it's a fair one, that great quarterbacks come in all different shapes and sizes. If you can play, you can play. Like the fact that we're still doing 5'10" and a half for the hand size. Cody Pickett was fine the times he was.
Kenny, that's a fine.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kenny Pickett. That is a fine. He was fine in the times that he had opportunities,
like
even
5
with the
touchdown
small
passes?
hands.
Lam-
He
Lamar-
played pretty good.
He was
did.
just okay. He was fine.
I know, but Dan, it's not to say that Bryce
Again.
Young can't be good because he's 5'10" and a half. It's absurd.
Well, Lamar Jackson also was another one people thought was too slight and too. He was 6'1". I know he's a tall.
But he got stronger in the pros.
He did, but it's not like as a rookie he was like, oh, he's so overwhelmed by the size of everybody. He's look, greatness is so hard to pin down. Roy, you're a hockey guy, right? So Wayne Gretzky, does he have the profile
A
of
great one.
Does he have the profile physically of a great hockey player?
For that sport, yeah. Especially back then in the
Did-
80s.
did
Yeah, definitely.
I thought the whole thing was he's small, like he's a tiny guy, and he's not like Lemieux and the other guys who are more classically chiseled.
Well, it's a different role. Mario Lemieux was more of a power forward than Wayne Gretzky was.
Got
Wayne
it.
Gretzky was a playmaker.
What about Sid the Kid?
I'm
I'm not gonna talk about
here
him.
for a new weekly segment. Amin learns the basics about another sport.
Hey, man.
Amin goes grasping for comps in other sports.
I'm not. Look, here's the reality. Everyone here is like,
Just
I
hockey.
work in sports, so that means I'm an expert in every
There's
sport.
the impersonation.
But it's
again.
not an impersonation. It's
That's
not an
not,
impersonation.
no.
Not an
It's a
impersonation.
impersonation.
It's a
that's
voice.
Two
Thank
poop
you.
emojis.
Thank you,
hot
Billy.
shit impersonation.
Okay, all right. Now you go to the penalty box.
Whoa! Hey, no!
Now who's
He just
derailing?
made the same joke.
No! Oh! Damn!
What was the point about Justin Fields we were trying to make?
Well, I mean,
He's
okay,
strong.
but I mean,
Lamar
you're
Jackson.
saying that like, well, the key to finding good athletes is figuring out if they're good athletes.
No,
like
I'm not saying. I'm
I
saying
think what they're trying to do with combine measurements and all this stuff is, well, what is the formula for finding a good quarterback? And it seems pretty clear that the answer is that there isn't one.
Yeah,
and so we're all just kind of guessing.
No, but my point is this, right? The two things that seem to be the biggest, right, is the talent, right? Just being able to throw and all that stuff, right? And then the mentality, right? Is this person focused? Are they a good leader? Da da da, right? The things we're measuring for don't measure for 80% or 90% of that. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find It's like people who
You
play,
can't measure someone's heart.
Yeah, that's one way to put it, Stugotz. But
Intangibles.
But it's not even we can't measure someone's heart. What's happening is people say, well, if I can measure all these other things, that'll be enough. And it's not, right? It's his hand size, his height, his weight, how much he squats. All that. None of that stuff is actually relevant, right? The relevance is in the way you play and also how seriously you take it. And so we look through all the quarterbacks, and that's pretty much the common thread. It's not a specific size. It's not a specific hand size. It's not a vertical leap. It's none of those things. It's can he play, and is he serious about this shit?
The other thing, too, that the Combine doesn't do or quarterbacks don't do in the Combine is throw, right? They throw at pro days. They don't throw at the Combine.
Right.
So the one thing I want to do is see if my quarterback can throw a 35-yard out route. Like, that's the one thing that
those pro days are designed to showcase
Correct.
the player's skills.
Correct,
With
but they
their
also
wide
don't throw at the
receivers,
Combine,
right.
though, guys.
Yes.
Like, there's a reason why they don't throw at the Combine.
Because the whole thing, they cut off very abruptly there. Whoa! Shut up, Tony.
That's part of the game I have back here. So it's all good.
Wait till we get to the new studio, right? I feel like it's a fake carrot they dangle in front of us. Wait till the new studio. Everything will be great.
2026.
Exactly. But to your point, Tony, like, so watch a guy throw an out route on pro day, but there's no pressure, right? There's no kind of actual stakes there, right? So you say, well, but he did it in college, but he did it against a certain level of competition. Get to the NFL, the competition is tougher. It's faster, it's quicker, it's smarter, right? That's where that other intangible stuff about, like, does he learn, right? Does he retain information? Does he adapt? And all of those things become even more important. But again, none of those things are getting measured at the Combine.
But having gone through scouting processes and brought players in for workouts and stuff like that when you were with Phoenix, what's the attempt to even try to figure out those things?
So,
do you feel like there was ever a moment where you guys hit on that, where it's like, oh, we noticed this about a player, and it turned out that player was good?
So, all right, so when we brought guys in, and it's different now because now the move is everyone just goes to the central Combine and do all the training, all the measurements and stuff. But for instance, the NBA Combine, they used to measure bench press, right? And that was the famous thing was, oh, Durant couldn't even bench press once. But we were like, at what point in an NBA game are you ever doing this motion? You're never doing this, right? So our measure of kind of like upper body strength and stuff was all kind of weird calisthenic things. So you had your hand spread across two lines, and then you had to touch each hand, go like this a certain number of times in a certain amount of time, right? We had all of these things, and then all that did was tell us how far you were from actualizing your maximum capacity, right? So it wasn't, if you scored bad in these things, it doesn't mean like, oh, you're undraftable. It meant more like, oh, wow, there's room for improvement, as opposed to where other prospects come in and did everything so well, it's like, there's nothing we can do physically to help him. He's as physically peak as he's ever going to get, right? But in terms of our drills were all made to mimic kind of decision-making things. So we're playing 3-on-3. We're going to go pick and roll, and this is what we're doing. We're sagging on every pick and roll. Doesn't matter what happens. I want to see you run it like that. Then we're saying...
problem solve the sag. Pick
Exactly,
and roll,
yeah. Now we're blitzing. Now we're, you're telling them what to do and then seeing if they can execute it. So it's a lot of stuff to see, like, how hard is it for you or how easy is it for you to adapt to different instructions and be able to execute. Those were the things that we looked at. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what you did in the Combine, what you did in a workout was such a smaller portion of the thing, because at the end, you had a resume, whether you are one and done or you played 3 years, whatever. We had a resume of you playing from whenever you first came on the scene in high school all the way through your whatever your collegiate exploits were. We knew what you did. We knew how you did against blitzes, how you did against sags, how you did against hedges and all that stuff. We knew all that stuff because we watched you do it. And then on top of that, the biggest part of any scouting operation is intel. Who are you as a person? Because that's the part, any asshole can watch it on TV and like, oh yeah, he's pretty good. Like, we can all do that. But it takes someone going and digging into your past and coming up with, for instance, a great example, Royce White. Royce White was...
You didn't want to get on planes. That was the thing, right?
Didn't want to get on planes. That was the public thing, right? Anxiety and didn't get on planes. And people focus on, well, is he going to just bust from place to place? I was the guy who did the deep dive on Royce White. That was like the last thing I did. And I discovered, well, yeah, he doesn't like it, but he pops a pill and he sleeps on it. Like, it's not an issue, right? His anxiety does manifest itself in different ways. The problem is also he has the behavior of an asshole. So, and he's smart. So he knows how to use his very real condition to his advantage when he doesn't want to do something. Nobody had this. The Suns had him like 10th on their draft board. I was like, absolutely not. My thing was like, absolutely not. He's a non-draftable because of all these issues. And it's not because of the anxiety. It's not because of his condition. It's because of who he was. And I found that out because I talked to people who weren't on the staff at Iowa State, right? I talked to people from his past and all that, and I did the deep dive to find these things. And guess what? Guy didn't have much of a career, and it wasn't because he couldn't get on a plane. It was because all of those things, coupled with, I thought as a player he was good. He wasn't LeBron for us to take a chance like that. So that's what the combine and drafting is about. It's not about like, oh, touch that. Who cares? That rarely ever becomes a make or break on a guy being successful.
Well, Deion Sanders,
he spoke your entire penalty, by the way. I mean,
he did talk.
It was great.
He talked. He talked a lot.
Bona fides.
I wanted his expertise on these things, not how his shit was. It's the reason that I originally sent you to the penalty box.
Yeah.
But can you play the sound of Deion Sanders? This is on Rich Eisen's show. What's wrong, Jessica? I mean, you're just disgusted by all of it, right? It's unnecessary.
He gave me
all
a
of
look
it.
like, oh, you're grossed out. Like, oh, you're stupid. So I gave him that look back.
What?
That was what that look was.
No. Gone too far.
Play Deion Sanders talking to Rich Eisen on how you prototype, how he figures out who to draft or who to recruit at what position.
Quarterbacks are different.
Yeah.
We want mother, father, dual parent.
Mm-hmm.
We want that kid to be 3, 5, and up because he's got to be smart. Mm-hmm. Not bad decisions off the field at all because he has to be a leader of men. It's so many different attributes in what we look for. Physical, offensive lineman. Defensive lineman is totally opposite.
What do you mean?
Single mama. Trying to get it. He's on free lunch. I'm talking about just trying to make it. He trying to rescue mama. Like mama barely made the flight.
He's talking about hunger, how you measure hunger. He's doing some stereotyping by position. I've often heard the offensive lineman, the guy that you want at offensive line is the guy who can repair the refrigerator. The guy you want on defensive line is the guy who could either destroy it or eat it. That this is something that is said through football channels. But
William Perry.
But now he is talking. Thank you, Stugotz. Now he's talking about what kind of patterning or upbringing a kid has. And that from there, you're not far from Jeff Ireland feeling comfortable asking Des Bryant whether his mother's a prostitute or not.
Here's my favorite part. If there was an amazing quarterback prospect who came from a single-parent household, Deion's not saying, no, not for me. You better come back when mom and dad get back together.
Or at a 3-4.
Right? Like that's the beauty of any sort of these heuristics, right? Is that you can say all that until someone comes and fits all the criteria that actually matters. Can he play? And is he serious about this shit? That's what matters. Single parent, double parent, none of that matters. None of that matters. I remember one time I tried to do like a study. I said, every great player or almost all the great players in NBA history all had siblings. Why? What does that mean? Right? LeBron is the outlier in that he's like an only child, and that doesn't happen. Great players who are only children almost never happens. You think of just name players right now. Name them. Steph Curry has siblings. Kobe had siblings. Shaq has siblings, right? Jordan had siblings. Magic had siblings. Like Bird, siblings. Like the only child thing does not exist in our sport. What does that mean? And then I realized it doesn't matter. It's not because they had siblings. It's because they could play.
You were trying to measure it, though? You thought the only child might be more selfish?
I don't know. It was just something I realized. Like, wait a second. Why is it all the great players have siblings? We're all the great only children.
Well, isn't it statistically more likely to have siblings than not in this country?
Sure, but it's way, like that number is skewed in the NBA, right? Where it's even greater.
Is LeBron the only child in the NBA?
No, I'm not saying that.
But,
I'm just saying.
I mean, how many? I'm curious. I wouldn't go down this rabbit hole with you.
But
how many only children are there?
I don't.
We
I don't.
gotta figure this out.
I don't know what the number
I
is.
wish none of us had ever seen this rabbit, and
No,
none of us had seen this hole, and none of us had been dragged into it.
Don't diminish the point. The point isn't only children, not only children. The point is when you start looking for ridiculous tangential things to explain the actual thing that we all know. He can play, and he's serious about this shit. That's all that matters. Hand size, vertical, siblings, only child, single parent, double. All of that is meaningless.
Grant Hill credits his Hall of Fame NBA career to growing up as an only child.
There you go. All right, that's 2.
Jessica would like to know them all.
I would honestly. I'm very curious now. But I think the thing Dion's saying is more damaging than that because it's like perpetuating stereotypes about children that come from single parent homes. And it's weird to hear Rich Eisen's producers all laughing along with it and like thinking it's really funny because to me it's just kind of gross. Like I didn't enjoy listening to that at all.
It's too simplistic, and it doesn't end up mattering no matter how much Dion thinks he knows about the psychology of football. He's getting players who can really play. Guys who, by any of the measurements, anybody who was coaching anybody would take all of them, no matter what they're coming from.
And also sort of like, to Jess's point, it just sort of like, okay, so if I'm a quarterback, I got to change position because my upbringing is the reason why I can't play this position. It's just, it's ridiculous. And honestly, out of the mouth of any other coach, it would be met with a lot more skepticism.
And be honest about it. If it came out of the mouth of a white coach, it would be treated as racist. It would be treated as questionable beyond what it is that we're talking about.
Kareem, only child.
3.
I don't want to do this the rest of the show.
Why?
I think it's fun.
It's not a great rabbit hole. Only children, and at the end of it, we've counted only children, and it doesn't mean anything, according to Amin, to know who the only children are.
Exactly. It's a worthless exercise. Is there, okay, not saying that it's appropriate, but is there any room for he was kidding?
I don't think he was he? It seemed
he
like
had a big smile on his face when he said it. Like I saw the video. I didn't just hear the audio.
That's why I always say just kidding after I'm kidding.
That's why
no
I don't.
No room for interpretation.
Or sarcasm.
If he was kidding, he should have just been like, just kidding.
I don't doubt that there's a kernel of truth in that he actually believes that. But I also think him saying it and everyone laughing along is because he said it in a very jovial, joking way. And not like as an actual
or
policy.
It could just be I've been given permission to laugh by somebody.
I think the reason people think he's not kidding is because this is probably what older generations of head coaches and probably some current ones still believe about these types of players and their families. So that's why maybe you give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe you don't though. Like there's certainly harmful stereotypes that head coaches perpetuate constantly in the sport.
Sure.
So I don't know if he said just kidding, I'd be like, oh, okay.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think he believes it, but also he said it in a very exaggerated way to make light of it.
But was it passed the
law? No one has suggested he's kidding other than you.
Sounds like a Bowden thing.
Play it again. Listen to the tone of his voice again.
Quarterbacks are different.
Yeah.
We want mother, father, dual parent. Mm-hmm. We want that kid to be 3, 5, and up because he got to be smart. Mm-hmm. Not bad decisions off the field at all because he has to be a leader of men. It's so many different attributes and what we look for. Physical, offensive lineman. Defensive lineman is totally opposite.
What do you mean?
Single mama. trying to get it. He's on free lunch. I mean, like, I'm talking about just trying to make it. He trying to rescue Mama. Like, Mama barely made the flight.
So, first of all, you could tell the inflection in his voice. The defensive line. Oh, hold on now.
But if what he said about quarterbacks is still what he actually believes, that's also.
But again, my point comes back to this. You think if the number one quarterback in the nation came from a single parent household and said, "I'd love to play in Colorado for Coach Deion," Deion's like, "No, not for me." You think he's saying no? Right? Like that's where all of these rule of thumbs fly out the window. Is that we're willing to abandon all of them at the sign of the thing that actually matters, which is talent.
Okay, well, you say this, and you said you realized something, and something that I realized that Whittingham realized, and it wasn't hard to notice it, because I've rarely seen Whittingham this enraged. There is a popular culture movement now that enrages Whittingham, not unlike the one toward a cashless society enrages me. I am not wrong about this. You will take my cash. My cash has value everywhere in the world. You will not take that American principle from me. I will not buy your 778 coffee anymore if you're someone that will not take cash.
Take a stand, Dan. There you go.
Whittingham says that this movement, and he's going to lose. He's going to lose. Mm-hmm. This movement of everyone wants to wear sneakers all the time. No one wants to wear dress shoes. No one young wants to dress up for a wedding that requires no sneakers. Whittingham is here to argue for the day where formal wear is required. Damn it, in the name of love.
Dan, the dress shoe is going to come back. I assure you.
No.
I'm looking at the camera right now.
No.
The dress shoe will come back.
No.
It will return
No.
at some point. But for the moment, we still have formal occasions. There are not many of them. The pandemic has ruined a lot of them. You go to a business dinner, you see people wearing jeans, you see people wearing dress sneakers, you see people wearing regular sneakers. A pair of Air Jordans suffices now as formal wear. It's not. It is not. When you go to a wedding and the groom says, "Hey, we're all wearing dress shoes," and a bunch of adult men go, "I don't know how to get dress shoes. Can we wear sneakers instead?" Get a pair of dress shoes. Wow. A nice pair of loafers. Go to a DSW. Where do you get dress shoes?
DSW.
Go to a mall and get a pair of dress shoes, lads. Like, what do we... Like, we have to wear Jordans all the time? Yes, they're uncomfortable. They're not perfect formal wear. They look fantastic. You look sharp. You look presentable. You look like you're ready for a formal occasion. You're ready to love when you have a pair of dress shoes on. It's part of the wedding experience.
Whittingham, you are
Put 'em
losing.
on.
Whittingham, you were losing. I thought on Instagram recently, 4 members of our crew revealed to the audience that they were all wearing the same exact Jordans.
Everyone is homogenizing. Is like, this is what's cool. It's the only thing that's cool.
No.
Put on a different pair of shoes.
No. First of all, Chris, I'd like to offer a formal apology. This is all my fault.
Oh, you're gonna allege that you trendsetted.
Well, no, it's because
you
he
were the
wore
first
a jersey
person to wear
to his
sneakers on
wedding.
television.
No, because in 2015 or 2016, I can't remember, whenever I started doing lots of SportsCenter and lots of TV, I said, yeah, I'm not wearing shoes anymore. I'm wearing sneakers.
Billy, are you appalled by the number of times that Amin has made everything about him today, including the invention of the wearing of sneakers?
I'm not.
With a suit? I mean, look, I'm not saying I did it for weddings, because the Jordan 11s are famously called the tuxedos, the black and white ones. So
they're not dress shoes, though.
They have patent leather, so that makes them dressy.
Wow. Tiger Woods, by the way.
Yeah. Single.
What'd he do?
Single child.
Maria Sharapova
Oh,
also.
sibling.
Oh, no, that's
Individual
Jeff
sports.
Bagwell.
That feels like it makes sense.
John Johnson.
these are
Joe
not
Montana.
These are not
Bill
basketball.
Bradley.
Yeah.
Bill Bradley.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah. Michael
Is
Jackson.
this a list of famous only children?
Michael Jackson, the most famous only child
The Cleveland
of all.
Brown?
Michael Jackson.
The Cleveland.
Michael Jackson.
The wide receiver, not the singer.
Billy, I think I have this right. I think that our next guest here is the authority. You hate the Astros. The Astros have not gotten enough attention for being dirty cheaters, obvious cheaters. They win in the end because they win the title, and then A couple years later, they win again because they're great.
They've been pretty good since they were busted for cheating. I mean,
And they were good. They were really bad before that. They proved that tanking works because they got rich off of tanking and cheating. And Evan Drellich, his new book, Winning Fixes Everything, How Baseball's Brightest Minds Created Sports' Biggest Mess. I have not seen this chronicled this way anywhere. He's the one who wrote the original story. He's a senior writer for The Athletic, broke the story of the cheating scandal, and then covered the franchise from 2013 to 2016. So I think, Billy, that this man is an American hero for you.
Yeah, I mean, the title, I mean, I'm not a writer, a bit wordy. I feel like you could just call the book Dirty Fucking Cheaters. You know what I mean? Like, that would have sufficed. Welcome, by the way.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind for the next book. I'll try to keep it a little more to the point there.
So that title was not a consideration.
No, I don't think Barnes & Noble would have really wanted to display that one. Is my guess.
Well, tell the people through all of your reporting, and thank you, Evan, for being on with us, the new ground or terrain you're covering in the book on this that people need to know about. This is an undercovered story, underreported, not covered at all very well. So you tell us, what did we miss?
I think there's a lot people missed, and the book is really answering a question of how did we get here? It reveals new details about what happened, the cheating in Houston, some of the cheating other teams were doing. But how do you arrive at this point where you have this massive scandal? You get 3 managers fired, Hinch, Cora, Beltran. You have the general manager fired, Luno. And it's not an accident. The Astros in 2019, right before our story comes out, they fired their assistant general manager after he had this drunken outburst in the clubhouse. I think a lot of people remember this because it was right before the World Series. The guy got fired. And so it's not happenstance that all this stuff happens in Houston. There were other scandals along the way. And I had been an Astros beat writer. I was really the first to write about their culture back 9 years ago now in 2014. And, for a long time, people were like, oh, they're so smart and they're so progressive. How could you ever present anything critical of them? And, I think 10 years later now, people are starting to open their eyes, and I think the book will help them open their eyes.
Evan, I don't think that people realize, though, that you've written the anti-Moneyball. You're explaining in your book, among other things, how corporate America has consumed baseball, has eaten it.
Yeah, look, I think Moneyball brought some smart things into the sport, and it was inevitable. But this is the outgrowth of Moneyball. This is all the ugly stuff that came along with Moneyball that, frankly, nobody really wanted to pay attention to for a long time. If you sat there and wrote critical things or presented critical views or questions about what these smart Moneyball era teams were doing, they painted you as a Luddite. You're left behind. What, you don't like numbers? You're some dummy? You didn't read Moneyball? But the reality is when you apply this cost efficiency model, not just to your roster, but the entirety of an organization, there's going to be some ugly stuff that goes on. And the Astros tried to do this to the extreme. When Jeff Luhnow takes over, Jim Crane gives him a blank piece of paper. This is your oyster. Do it the way you think it should be done. Well, the way it should be done was good at building a winning roster, good at making money, and bad at taking care of their people, bad at preventing cheating, and bad at not blowing up.
So being a beat writer and being there every day, I mean, from where they came from, they were not good. And then they are great. Was there kind of like a sense of this is too good to be true? Or was it more like, let's just enjoy this ride because this is going really well. So let's not kind of look into why this is happening.
I mean, I think this goes to the heart of the book and the title. Forget the too long subtitle there. But does winning fix everything, right? When a sports team wins, this has been true for a long time. You're going to get a glowing book about how darn smart they are, right? Because they won. What else is the goal besides holding up that trophy at the end of the season? And in the case of the Astros, the conversation actually keeps going. They won, but there's something else going on. And in the Astros case, a lot of other stuff was going on here. Yeah, I think after Moneyball, you had a lot of writers, a lot of sports writers who wanted to be the next Michael Lewis. They wanted to write about and slobber over all this innovation in the sport and look how smart everybody is. Look at these disruptors. Let's put them all up on a pedestal, and didn't actually consider, but what's actually going on the ground and inside the organization?
Evan, did Jeff Luhnow, the former Astros general manager, did he ultimately do his job too well?
He got fired along with his manager and 2 other managers who had already left the organization. No shot. Jeff Luhnow could have, if he had paid attention to some other elements of his business, treating people well, paying people well, creating a better culture, he has a real shot to be a Hall of Fame executive based on the skill he has in terms of constructing a roster, bringing in innovative people. Luhnow did a lot of smart stuff, but you don't have to do all the other stuff that went along with Luhnow's smart stuff, right? You can be smart and not have this kind of disaster happen. And that was always the defense in Houston. It was, this is how it has to be done. If change were comfortable, it would have already been done. No, you don't have to treat people the way the Astros treated people. You don't have to have an organization that brings in McKinsey and Company, the consulting firm, in the middle of a baseball season to evaluate manager AJ Hinch's moves. You don't have to do that, but he did it.
So that's one example, and the cheating scandal is a fairly big one. But you're kind of talking about, like Moneyball as if the player of Moneyball is about player evaluation. But what are the specific examples? I don't mean to ask you to give away your book, but what are these specific examples of this organization went awry in trying to apply this method to everything?
What is Moneyball about, right? I mean, not to be cheeky, it's money. The whole thing about Moneyball is creating a new way, a better way for owners to evaluate players. And really, what does that mean? To save money, to build cheap rosters to win baseball games. Well, you can take that cost efficiency mindset and apply it to your whole organization. We're going to save money at every possible corner. When the Astros, this current ownership, Jim Crane gets there in 2011, they clean house. They fire everybody. Didn't really matter, how good you were. Most people were just pushed out. We can get somebody $20,000 cheaper. Well, what happens when you do that? You lose a lot of wisdom. You lose people who probably you should have worked to bring up to speed if maybe they weren't, technologically savvy. And there are all sorts of examples. People who deserve title promotions didn't get them. They always wanted to keep pay, not just for players, but for their entire staff in the bottom half of the league. When Jeff Luhnow would go to owners meetings and meet with other Astros owners, he would literally show these other owners, hey, we're at the bottom of all of these lists. Business owners love to save money. That's great. But the Astros took it so far and rubbed so many people the wrong way that they were creating this tinderbox that it was going to explode. People weren't going to protect the team. People weren't going to be loyal. There was no communication. There was distrust. It was Moneyball on steroids is the way to look at it.
Was AJ Hinch a fall guy? Because at the time, what it felt like, and it could have been spin, right? It felt like Major League Baseball gave all the players immunity because they just wanted to get answers, right? And, management, managers, stuff like that are collateral damage. It doesn't matter because they're not the stars that you're going to see. And then there's reports that AJ Hinch took baseball bats to some of the equipment to, quote unquote, try to stop it. But then he said he didn't vocally tell them to stop it. So I guess he admitted some guilt there. So was he just collateral damage, or is that spin? Why did they give all the players immunity to not actually punish the people involved and then let him kind of seemingly take the fall for it?
Manfred and the commissioner's office screwed up a lot in this process. But as far as Hinch goes, his title is manager. And I don't mean that in just baseball manager. He has to manage his people. He is in charge of that clubhouse. At the end of the day, that's his group. Luhnow is certainly there too. Jim Crane is certainly at the top of the organization. But yeah, when you allow a cheating scheme to fester, and Hinch did, try to make some demonstration, hey, I don't like this, but he never, in front of the whole team, said, we are stopping this today. And he regrets that deeply. He should have. So Hinch totally failed. Now, the question about why the players weren't punished, it's an annoying technical answer, but basically because the commissioner hadn't brought this up to the players union sooner in advance, if he tries to decide one day, you know what, I'm going to newly punish this behavior like this with X number of games, the union's going to file a grievance. They're going to get it overturned. I think it's ridiculous, the notion that the commissioner had to give immunity to get to the answers. Why? Because the original story Ken Rosenthal and I did had everything. And then video comes out after that from John Boy. backing up everything in the story. We had a player on the record, Mike Fiers. Rob Manfred couldn't have gotten to the bottom of what happened without giving immunity. No, nonsense. He didn't want to be in a spot where he tries to punish the players and then he looks weak because the union gets him vacated or overturned.
So I was going to ask you about Fiers. Does any of this happen without Mike Fiers? And then also, does Mike Fiers do what he did had he not been left off of the playoff roster?
So because Fiers was on the record, I think there's this outside perception that he calls up Ken Rosenthal or I one day and is like, hey, you guys know the Astros were cheating? And I get why people make that assumption. And maybe, it's not impossible that it could have gone that way, I guess, but it's not actually what happened. The story, I started reporting on it 13 months before it came out. Comes out in November 2019. I learned what happened from inside the organization in October of 2018. So more than a year before the story comes out. I get fired in the middle of this, sitting in my notebook. I pair up with Ken, and we finally start making headway. We're days away, literally 3 days away from publishing. We've already got drafts. We've got all the facts. We have, at that point, 3 unnamed sources, but we're comfortable. We know what we've got. But, we're reporters. We want to try to get somebody on the record. We want to try to get more information, call as many people as we can. So Ken calls Mike, tells him what we have, and I think that's important. We weren't just fishing. It was, hey, this story's coming. This is what we got, and let me read it to you. And Mike at that point was willing to confirm it and willing to go on the record. And I don't say any of this to minimize Mike Fiers. Having the courage to put your name behind it and tell people what your baseball team had done, that's not easy. That's the action of a whistleblower, and whistleblowers are rare in any industry. But yeah, the idea that this story only happens because Mike Fiers decides to talk, it's just not actually what happened. It's not the way this came together.
It's like he tried to set fires to the organization.
Also, classic Rosenthal. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, Rosenthal really swooped in and stole your story.
What?
Huh?
No, I wanted Kenny to do it. Look,
Kenny.
He's the biggest name in baseball reporting, right? I mean, if we got one chance to get a guy on the phone, do I want Evan Drellich making that call, or do I want Ken doing it? So I was happy to work with him. I just wanted the story out, right? It was burning a hole in my notebook. I had the thing for more than a year. It was, it's eating at you. So I love Ken. I'm glad he.
So it just sounds like you did the work and he came in and got a finder's fee. Is what it sounds like. It does.
Yeah.
It sounds.
And you're okay with it.
In fact, you said in the middle of it that you'd been fired, right? So what's what is the backstory there, and what is the journey and the danger? Because you wanted to do this and want to do this for a career. And my guess is a book about the team that you're covering cheating isn't the way that you imagined it going.
No, look, I was when I find out about the Astros cheating, I was working for a regional sports network in Boston. So the whole operation there was geared toward Celtics basketball games and reacting to sports talk radio, which, that's fine and great, but it is not the type of place that values or knows how to do investigative reporting. It's just not. And I didn't expect to be fired, but it was one of the reasons why the story didn't come out sooner was A, I still needed to do more reporting, but B, I didn't trust the place to back me up if it did come out and the Astros would attack me. And by the way, they absolutely would have. We saw a year later how they tried to attack Stephanie Apstein of Sports Illustrated, called her a liar. I mean, so I made the right call. And then in the end, getting fired is this total great thing because it allows me to go to The Athletic, allows me to pair up with Ken, who did not steal my reporting.
Yeah.
And
he made the right call. I mean,
no, absolutely.
It's like he took advantage of a guy down on his luck,
Hey,
Yeah,
you need me to make the
whatever
call.
narrative you want.
No, we're just making one for you. That's all.
Evan, why is baseball so good at cheating? Between this, the hacking, where the Cardinals hacked the Astros, the different types of PEDs we'd never heard of. Why is baseball at the cutting edge? But going back to 1919,
but is it good? Is it good at cheating, or is it that it's always evolving and they're looking for the margins where victory can reside, and they don't apply anything in the way of morals? Because I don't think they're good at cheating.
They all get busted.
They all get caught cheating because they don't have morals about doing it by the rules because they're competitionaholics.
But is that exclusive to baseball? Why doesn't it happen in basketball, soccer,
it's exclusive to corporate America. which is what it is that Evan is saying here. The smart people got to sports and realized, wait a minute, people aren't doing things dirty enough. The smart people got to sports and are like, we can cut all sorts of corners and make money through cheating because they're following some fictitious rules about their romantic game, and we can bang on garbage cans and win the World Series.
Yeah, all these points are pretty much right. The Astros' whole essence was about figuring out ways to get an advantage, right? So when it trickles down to the clubhouse and you've got bad relationships between the front office and the clubhouse, you've got a strained relationship between Hinch and his bench coach, Alex Cora. Where is that line between innovation and cheating? This was clearly cheating. It's not as though the Astros were unaware that they were going too far. They looked around, saw the Red Sox, Yankees, some other teams, using their video room. They're like, well, we can do this better than them. But yeah, it is corporate America. It's in baseball, the carrot, in all sports, the carrot, the incentive to cheat is always going to be there. Money, fame, success, books written about you, acclaim, or really money at the end of the day is a big one. There will be another great scandal in sports, or at least there will be another great cheating scheme. Whether we find out about it, maybe they'll get smarter. Maybe they will wear a buzzer under their jersey and nobody knows about it. But people are always going to try to bend the rules. Baseball, football, doesn't matter. Any of the sports.
Lou now seems like a bad person in general, just the way that you're describing him. Does he get fired without the cheating scandal, or is he still there today?
One of the things that's almost uncomfortable for me, and it goes back to the title of the book, is that if you take away the cheating scheme, all this other crap was going on in Houston, and yet the team was very successful. And I think that's really hard for people, sports fans, to reconcile. Well, wait, they're winning. How could they be bad? How could there be all this other crap going on? Does the means justify the end? And I hope that's a question people reading the book really do ask themselves: is do you care how you get there? Right? Even if it's not this most extreme example of a cheating scheme. And Luno, this is a shades of gray situation. The guy is smart. The guy brought good stuff into baseball. Smart techniques. But he did a lot of screwed up stuff, treated a lot of people really poorly. I think one way or another, whether the cheating scheme happens or not, you did have that incident with the assistant general manager getting fired because he's drunk screaming in the clubhouse at reporters. It was going to blow up. It was a matter of time before something went awry. And in the end, you have multiple things going on.
The new book, Winning Fixes Everything, How Dirty Fucking Cheaters Always End Up Winning. It has more reporting on this than you have seen anywhere else. Before we let you go and we got to get out, there's more information on this, and I'm telling you should take a look at it if you want to know how the underbelly of greed and business work to contaminate and corrupt everything. But before you get out of here, Evan, what are people getting most wrong about this scandal? What in your book is something that is vastly different from the tangential knowledge that people have of, the Astros are cheaters, and they won, and they kept winning after they stopped cheating because cheating worked?
People have no idea how different the public narrative around the Astros, and probably around a lot of teams, is from what actually goes on the inside. My reaction when reporting out a lot of this was just, whoa, this is wild. People think, oh, this guy's so smart and this guy's so great. And then you get under the hood and they're all fighting with each other. They have no idea what to do. And it's creating chaos. There was a quote in the book from somebody with direct knowledge of league investigation. Everybody thought it was this well-oiled machine. But when you looked inside, it was a disorganized mess. And I'm very proud that the book is truly a look inside.
Evan, thank you for being on with us. I will tell the audience again, Winning Fixes Everything, How Baseball's Brightest Minds Created Sports' Biggest Mess. It is really kind of like the anti-Moneyball or the evolution and revolution of Moneyball. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys.